Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Dune in June. This is a new BookTube event created by Sean D. Standfast, where we read Frank Herbert's masterpiece Dune in the month of June. The goal of Dune in June is to read all of Dune. So the first part of the novel Dune, which is also called Dune, is for the first week, which is halfway done, where you should be halfway through the first part of this book by now. And then the second part of the book is for the second week, Muad'Dib, and then the third part is for the third week, the Prophet. And then in the fourth week, I will make a video about the various cinematic adaptations of this book. The original crappy movie, the mini-series on Sci-Fi Channel, and then the two-part mega Hollywood movie that's just been in theaters. And all of my co-hosts will not make videos on that subject, or certainly won't do live streams with me, although we will fervently try to plan that. I'll probably talk about a lot of wrapping up thoughts with Dune in the fourth week of June. Who can know? Who knows if we'll even live to see the end of June. But for now, ad hoc. I wasn't planning this at all. But I made a few primer videos about Dune, specifically to lure a lot of you into this book who might have thought it's too much. I'm not hep to the jive the kids are laying down. I'm not ready to read Dune. You are. It takes a tiny bit of preparation. That's all. And I made a couple of videos trying to give you that preparation. And then I fell into just a detailed reading of each chapter of this book. Dune has parts to it, big, huge parts to it. And it doesn't call its smaller parts chapters, but they are. They are chapters. They're usually just a scene. I've done a close reading of each of those initial chapters, I guess to further the idea of demystifying this for first-time readers, to get you into the world of this book, so that then you will keep reading. It wasn't my plan to do a chapter-by-chapter read-through of Dune, the whole book. That would take all summer, and it wasn't my plan to do that. But a lot of you have been emailing me saying that you're really enjoying these walkthroughs of these chapters. Most of you who've emailed me have said that you're enjoying the walkthrough of the chapter, even though you've long since gone on and are nearing the end of reading the first part of Dune, or even have gone on beyond that. I find that odd but pleasant, so I'm going to do this again for this. Maybe I'll finish out the week doing these, and then I'll do the same thing for like the first 5 or 6 or 7 chapters of Muad'Dib as well. But we are dealing with today. We have another chapter. It's a very short one. It's a very brief scene, just a snippet of an encounter. And it is set in the same setting that we have had most of our other chapters. Only one has not been. One of our chapters was on Gedi Prime, the homeworld of the bad guys of this book, House Harkonnen. All the others have been set not on Dune, but on Caladan, on the lush green water world that is the home of House Atreides before they are ordered by the Emperor to pack up and move to Dune, the planet Arrakis, the planet Dune, which is completely different. A completely harsh world, a desert world, no oceans at all. Water is precious on Dune. These early chapters, and they are coming to an end. These early chapters are House Atreides preparing for that move, specifically centering on the young heir, the ducal heir, Paul Atreides, who's just a teenage boy, on his preparation for leaving. He knows that he's leaving soon, within a day, and all of his friends, his father's advisors, are leaving even sooner to prepare the way for the household to move to Dune and take up residence there. And in the last chapter that we saw, we see Paul talk briefly with 2 of his father's most trusted advisors, his mentat, Thufir Hawat, and his troubadour war master, Gurney Halleck. We see Paul talk with them. There's obviously long familiarity, and then they leave. And Paul is still in the training room. And this scene takes right up off there, where Paul is still in that training room. He has since been visited by a masseuse who has pounded him into putty. So he's laying down and he's very comfortable. When a new figure enters the room, Dr. Yueh, who is the physician to House Atreides, and he has been Suk certified by the Imperial training school of physicians so that he is allegedly perfectly trustworthy. He will not serve poison to you as your doctor. He will not kill you with a medical procedure. I'd like to know, Frank Herbert doesn't tell us, I'd like to know whether or not there was any kind of certification for those masseuses. Those masseurs, they're in just the same position to kill the heir to the Duke. Are they surrounded by armed guards the whole time? They could still kill the heir of the Duke and just die themselves. We don't get told anything about that, but maybe because Frank Herbert thought they were beneath his notice. But they have just had their way with young Paul, and he is, any of you who've ever had a really good massage session, you're putty when it's over. You just want to lay in a puddle. You don't feel like you can actually use your muscles. Paul is in that position when Dr. Yueh arrives. Now, Dr. Yueh is a dark figure in these early chapters of Dune. He is a traitor. He is going to betray House Atreides. He has been conscripted to do that by House Harkonnen. That is not a spoiler. We are told that right away at the beginning of the book. We are told everything about the plot here. There are almost no spoilers here. There are a couple of things that are revelations, and I will not spoil them, but Dr. Yueh's treachery is not one of them. In fact, in this chapter, we learn that in the epigraph to the chapter, before we even get to the chapter itself. The epigraph is something called the Dictionary of Muad'Dib, and it's yet another book written by this Princess Irulan person that we have not met. She's apparently made an entire cottage industry publishing career out of writing books about Muad'Dib. So this is another one. And this is just the dictionary entry for Dr. Yueh, in which we are told, let me get you the quote, we are told, chiefly noted as betrayer of Duke Leo Atreides. So we already know this. We've already been told it. But here we get to meet the man. Tall, stick-figure man who is the imperial physician. He is the ducal physician. He is Paul's doctor and one of his teachers. A mockable teacher. Paul does not think of him the same way he does Gurney Halleck or Duncan Idaho or Thufir Hawat. Dr. Yueh is much more of a stereotypical teacher. And he comes to find Paul and tells him, you believe to know that we don't actually have lessons today. I have a little reading material for you, but your father is coming to talk to you. Paul gets really excited about that. We're told that he's barely seen his father at all since the preparations for moving to Dune have been consuming the whole household. So he's excited for his father's visit, but he puts up with Dr. Yueh while Dr. Yueh is there. And Dr. Yueh says that he has a film book for him about the non-humanoid life forms on Dune. I think what the doctor means here is probably birds or bats, but tyrannic life forms is what he calls them. But Paul only wants to know about the sandworms. That's the only kind of life form that he wants to know. I think that Dr. Yueh's focus here is on the life forms that exist on other worlds, whereas there are no sandworms on any other worlds. They're unique to Dune. That's the only life form that Paul wants to know about. And Dr. Yueh confirms that they get enormously big. He has seen a film book of a small worm, 100 meters long. But there are reliable reports of them being much, much bigger than that. Huge, enormous creatures of the deep sands. That's all Paul wants to know about. But he's also curious about the Fremen, the wild people of Dune. Dr. Yueh dismissingly says that they write poems to their knives. They are incredibly savage. But you won't be allowed to mingle with them. They're dangerous people. And you're the Duke's heir. So if you meet them, it'll be in a delegation. It'll be extremely well guarded, but you won't need to know anything about their personalities or their society. You won't need to know anything about that. Very, very ironic in light of the future events of the book. And that's really it. The two main imports of this chapter are, one is personal to me, and one is motivational for the book, for the reader. Because we don't just get introduced to Dr. Yueh, and you as a reader are thinking, ooh, this guy's going to betray the Duke. Ooh. And keep in mind, this is a plot. The Harkonnens have already told us the plot. Dr. Yueh will betray Duke Leto as soon as they move to Arrakis, to Dune. And then the Baron's forces will move in, clandestinely supported by forces of the Emperor, to wipe out House Atreides. We already know that's the plot. So when you're introduced to Dr. Yueh, you're thinking, oh, so this is the guy. This is a fait accompli. It's not just that the Harkonnens tell us this is their plan, and in a normal science fiction novel, it may or may not succeed. This Princess Irulan person is writing these books about something that happened a long time ago, that is settled history. Dr. Yueh is already known as the betrayer of the Duke, so the betrayal happens. It's not just that, though. It's also that we get Dr. Yueh's thoughts. We get inside his mind, and he's not a villain, not in the conventional sense of the term, certainly not in the Harkonnen sense of the term. He is concerned with his wife, Wana, who is Bene Gesserit, and who has been captured by the Harkonnen. She is in their torture pits. He has no idea what her fate is. He has no idea what they're doing to her. They have contacted him. They have used his love of his wife to override his Suk conditioning. That's how they make a traitor out of him. Baron Harkonnen says, if you break your conditioning and betray the Duke to me, I will deliver your wife to you. I will deliver you to her. I will put her out of her suffering. And that's all Dr. Yueh wants. That and one other thing, of course. If someone comes to you and makes that kind of a bargain, if you don't have any other way, you're going to say yes to that bargain. But in addition to keeping the bargain, you're going to want one other thing. You're going to want that person dead. You're going to want those two things. We only get the first one in this chapter. We get Dr. Yueh's thoughts, and they're full of pity. He's looking at Paul and thinking, boy, he's filled out well in the last year. It's such a shame. It's such a shame what I have to do. But I have to. For my Wana. I have to do this. I have to betray these people. I don't want to, but that's the coin. Paul doesn't sense any of this. Of course, there's no telepathy in Frank Herbert's Dune. In the world of Dune, there's no telepathy. So no one senses Yueh's thoughts. I want to argue here, I will hit this note a couple of times for the rest of this week, that you shouldn't need telepathy. This guy is not hiding that something major is wrong with him. He's not hiding that very well. At all. I mean, not at all. In this chapter, he barks out yelling at Paul over literally nothing, something that he should have been able to control himself, and Paul notices it. Surely this is not the only time that kind of an outburst has happened, and in front of other people. It's not just that Thufir Hawat, as a mentat, should be able to see this. It's also that the Lady Jessica, as a Bene Gesserit, should be able to see this. Maybe Gurney Halleck and Duncan Idaho maybe have other things on their mind. Maybe the Duke has other things on his mind. But Dr. Yueh is not hiding his treachery very well. Surely either the mentat or the Bene Gesserit should have been able to see it. But we can brush it all under the heading of they all have other things on their mind. They're all distracted. Okay, fine. So we get that. That's the general thing for this chapter. That's the only thing really that you get out of this chapter, is that you get to know that Dr. Yueh is not the black and white villain that the Harkonnens are. And the other thing is personal, which is that Dr. Yueh gives Paul a gift, a parting gift. I think he thinks that he doesn't have many more sessions with Paul before Paul is dead. Doesn't come out right out and say that in this chapter, but I think he thinks that technically there should not be any peril involved in making the interstellar jump from Caladan to Dune. So it's not like taking an ocean liner, where people often did say their goodbyes because they weren't 100% sure they'd get to the other end. I think it rather the note of finality here, which again, Paul should have noted. Thufir Hawat should note it. Jessica should notice the notes of finality in the Doctor, but he gives Paul a present. He tells Paul to keep it a secret from his parents because it's valuable. He gives a little book, a little filament book. It's not a film book. We're never really told what a film book is. Herbert is clearly trying to imagine the future of the book. Naturally, as a thorough creature of the book, that fascinates me. What this thing is that he hands Paul, which we're told is no bigger than the tip of his thumb. It's a book. It's an 1,800-page Orange Catholic Bible. It's a big book that has been compressed into this little thing on film paper. So it's not electronic, but it it works in intriguing ways. It is you tab the side of it, and it opens for you. And you can tab the side to get to different pages, to turn the pages. It's all powered by electrostatic tension of one kind or another. Herbert gives feints about the technology, but doesn't go into any detail, probably because it wouldn't work any more than the technology of the still suits would work. So he feints at it enough for it to be really convincing. And he tells Paul that it's an old device, it's antique, it was made before film books were available. He tells him don't touch the filament pages, they're too delicate, just operate it by the tabs on the side, the notches on the side. A fascinating look at... Herbert was clearly trying to imagine what a non-ink and paper bound book would be like. What would that be like? What direction would that go in? Of course, this was written long before there were even the beginnings of trade shows about what electronic reading might be like. I went to some of those early trade shows and saw some of those very preliminary ideas of what an electronic reading device for a person would be like. Not for a classroom, but for a person. There was never any imagining of something like this. This is a miracle. Just a miracle. There was no imagining of anything that convenient. I think that's fascinating. And the dead giveaway here connected with that book is that Dr. Yueh asked Paul to feel for a notch on the side of favorite passage, open the book, and read it. He's such a schoolmaster that he puts Paul to a reading exercise, not remembering or not really guessing that his wife, this book belonged to his lost wife, that his wife would have notched her own favorite passage, and Paul finds that first and starts to read it out. And Dr. Yueh is startled and deeply upset, yells at Paul to stop. And the passage itself is freighted. Let's see here. Let me give you the passage. Because it's his wife's favorite passage. Think you of the fact that a deaf person cannot hear? Then what deafness may we all not possess? What senses do we lack that we cannot see and cannot hear another world all around us? What is there around us that we cannot... And that's when Yueh stops him, barks at him to stop. In retrospect, in hindsight, you want to save House Atreides. So in retrospect, I look at this and I think surely Paul would go to his mother, or to Thufir Hawat, or to his father, and say something seems to be really upsetting Dr. Yueh. Might you have a talk with him about it? I mean, he doesn't do that, but Yueh yells at him to stop, and you can see why. That passage is wonderful, because Yueh is the unseen thing. He's the thing that the Atreides house is deaf to. It's right there next to them, and they don't have the sense to pick it up and be aware of it. What his wife thought, why she liked that passage, I don't know. We never learn anything about what their relationship was like. She was Bene Gesserit, so she certainly would not approve of what he does in her name. But that is this chapter. It's over in a heartbeat. It's clearly just a quick preliminary scene to introduce us to Dr. Yueh, and just to whet our appetites for the next scene, which will be Paul and the Duke, Paul and his father, where we finally get to meet this figure, who is doomed, keep in mind. The Reverend Mother has already told Paul, for the father, nothing. Father is doomed. So we'll move on to that next time. I think that's what I might do for Dune in June. I might do these close reading walkthrough chapter reads of the beginning chapters of each part of the book, because I don't think I can do this for every chapter in the book, or we would be at this all summer long. I think that's what I might do, but it doesn't worry. We'll continue through for this first week until we finish with the first week of Dune in June, which is Dune. So I'll wrap this up for now, and we'll go on to the next chapter next time. Thank you, BookTube.